Hi there. I just wanted to talk to you this morning about our current seller's market and kind of compare it to the seller's market we had about 15, maybe 13 years ago and sort of compare and contrast them. Because when I talk to investors, some of them are like, you know what, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to sit on the sidelines and wait for the next crash. Um, you know, I don't have a crystal ball. That could happen. It could be just as spectacular. But having been through it, I at least want to share with you why I think um, we don't have the same fuel for a crash that we had last time. This isn't to say that we'll have a slowdown or prices might go down a little or anything like that, but I don't see the same kind of fuel that we had last time. So I thought I would talk about that just so you can go and compare and contrast your market, because maybe your market's different than what I'm familiar with. So the first one that you have to watch out for is lending standards. And both lending standards for investors and first-time home buyers. So investors first. When I started, investors could get pretty much any loan for any property they wanted, and really for almost nothing down. And I think certainly 10% down was possible by everybody, with an 80% first and a 10% second. First-time home buyers, they could get in for almost no down, right? Just closing costs. There were some loan programs back, in the last seller's market. Fast forward to today. Investors are really tapped out, at least in traditional banks, right? You can certainly get your first four relatively easily today. There are paths to get to 10, but then they sort of cut it off. Before, right, again, going back, there were investors that just kept pyramiding their debt, and that's what made it so spectacular when it crashed. They could have had 30 or 40 or 50 homes and lost them all, which was a problem, obviously, for the sellers of the banks who owned all of them in mass. That's just not happening today. Same with first-time home buyers. The lending standards are very different. Now, they can still get low down, they can still get 3%, they can still do these things, but at least until recently, the credit standards were much higher, right? But before, it was almost, you just had to have a pulse, something in the 500s. I'm starting to see some of those programs today, but not in mass, not being securitized, not being sort of raced, liar loans and things like that. Teaser loans, all of those things that caused all that extra kindling that caused the crashes, not there today. So that's first. Second, construction, and more specifically in mass construction. I lived through it last time, and there seemed to be neighborhoods or subdivisions being built. It seemed like everywhere. I'm sure it wasn't everywhere, but we've been below the average construction for quite some time now. Even today, it's hard for stuff to pencil, meaning it's hard for them to get a decent return on their capital in time and all of that. It certainly will come back, right? Prices are increasing, and eventually it will be profitable to build again. But I don't see them being built at the same rate by, pick a number, 20 different companies, right? The market's been washed out. There's less, and there being a lot more control. So I see construction being very different. Flipping, certainly there's some flipping now, and you can see some articles on flipping. But as somebody who lived that environment last time, very different. The flips that I see today are truly value add, meaning they're taking a distressed asset, investing time and days, and improving the property. Also, they're doing value adds, meaning they're adding bedroom baths, they're adding master suites, they're doing things that allow to add value. Again, I lived through the last one of these, and flips were, in many cases, they just bought a property and relisted it the next day. Did nothing. Didn't even clean it or paint it, and they slapped ridiculous price increases on that property. And frankly, some of them were selling, and people were making a lot of mash and a lot of money in that crazy environment. It's very different today. Flips are very different. Rent increases. You see me looking over, it's because I have notes over here. Rent increases. I think I've shared this story a couple of times now. That first property we bought rented for $10.95, and fast forward 5 years, it's still rented for $10.95, but yet the price doubled. Not today. There are rent increases, right? Some would call it inflation, right? So prices are going up, but rents are also going up. So we're seeing this kind of, the ability to have rents support the higher prices. Unlike before, where it was just out of control, rents were flat, and prices doubled, and it's not that today. So I think it is very different. And then the last one I want to sort of talk about is Where it seemed like before, everybody everybody who could bought, and most of us who bought multiple, right? So the demand was fully exhausted. I could tell you we have probably 5 to 7 years of demand being constrained. We have a generation that really hasn't moved into the market yet. Maybe they never will, right? There's a whole notion that maybe we become a renter nation. I doubt it. They will eventually start having kids and want to have something of their own. At least that's my belief. Again, I could be wrong. But I think it's fair to say we have lots of family generational living, and that gets hard after a while. It's hard to have a grandmother or a mom and the kids sort of in the same house when they're all adults and all living at different times, and one wants to party till 2 a.m. and one's in bed at 8 o'clock, and dinner times are different, and it's just hard. And I could see that as the employment and the job market stays strong and all of that, demand is there. So at least pent up demand is there. So I think we're in for a nice run of a seller's market. It's going to be hard and difficult to find deals and opportunities, but I think there's the protection because of all those things I've just run through. That means that if we were to have a slowdown or a reduction, I don't think it certainly won't be like last time unless everything I've just went through changes overnight. So in the end, appreciate where we are. Do your homework, get in the market. You want to be you want to own assets in a seller's market because all tides raise all ships, and these are times you can get those you can get leverage and have your net worth increase. You can have rent increase your cash flow and all of that. So I think it's a great time to get in. But again, I just wanted to share this with you, and have a great day.